staircase is inspired by The Haunting, the black and white version. I really love spiral staircases and I find there's something ominous about them. Also worth noting is that torture devices in the level are all real and that things similar to those depicted had happened in real life. Even in present days. For example, strappado is still a common torture method. As discussed in another commentary spot.
Was there something else? You seem to have found all the ore pieces used in the transept. Go to the choir and find the rest.
August 1839. The blood wards are failing. The shadow beckons, and its cry disarms my actions. Hurry. No time to spare. You have to kill another. Alexander produces a knife. He wants me to cut the flesh. Do it. Save yourself. He is a murderer, Daniel. He is evil. A cold-blooded killer. Hurry. Alexander, you must let me be. I have to concentrate. Hate the man, cut the lines, cut the flesh, watch the blood spill, let it come. Please, I didn't do anything. Hate the man, cut the lines. Cut the lines! Leave the man cry. Now you see. I did well. One life for another. You hear me, guardian of the orb? I did all this for you. Now, once more, withdraw your shadow from my domain. Alexander, there isn't much time. I can feel it. We must act swiftly. I will do whatever it takes.
For the torture levels, it was not all that fun to make the sounds. It has a nerve-wracking feeling to it, and I can't say that it is completely enjoyable to make entertainment out of such horrible contraptions. This part of the game is not for show and fun. Its purpose is to create an instinctive feel of horror and repulsion to what these devices are capable of. In the vision, as Daniel performs the ritual, the muffled sound of the man on the table is my own voice. I do some exclusive appearances throughout the game. In fact, in open number games I am fairly certain there is a Jens here and there. But nothing prior has been so disturbing to work with as in this vision, when having to tweak the flow and style of the events, and at the same time having to hear your own panicking, pleading, muffled voice.
The inspiration for this level came from the first Silent Hill game, when you run around in the town. I wanted to recreate the feeling of being lost, knowing that dangerous creatures lurked in the fog. I did not really like the map in the Silent Hill games though, as you always had to switch back and forth between it. So in all our games we tried to come up with other ways to help the player navigate. In this level it meant that you should follow the pipes. This was not really apparent to all people though, and that's why there's a little event at the start.
To be yours, but now you only seek misplaced revenge. How do you justify your violence? Is it for the greater good? Are you doing the world a service? It is you who caused all this pain and death. If you had accepted your fate and submitted to the orb when you first discovered it, it is curiosity in league with your selfishness that is killing us both.
inspiration for this level came from the first Silent Hill game, when you run around in the town. I wanted to recreate the feeling of being lost, knowing that dangerous creatures lurked in the fog. I did not really like the map in the Silent Hill games though, as you always had to switch back and forth between it. So in all our games we tried to come up with other ways to help the player navigate. In this level it meant that you should follow the pipes. This was not really apparent to all people though, and that's why there's a little event at the start.
The wheel is good for keeping your victims still during the procedure. They can be bound around the circumference or simply stretched across, tying limbs to the spokes and rim. All tools are by this point useful, and you may administer the torture in any way you like. But the forte of the wheel is the gaps. When you have decided that the victim shall die, you can smash their limbs with a hammer, making them fold in between the frame.
But they'll die. Too quickly, I mean.
No, don't worry. The human body is much more resilient. They can survive for days until they finally succumb.
Incredible. You found Vile's recipe. Then there might still be a chance. Listen carefully. Alexander is working on opening a gate, a door to another world. It's where he wants to go. If you could put your anger aside, let him open the portal before you take your revenge. Let me pass the gate then. Please, find the ingredients and prepare the tonic Vile describes. And do so before you assemble the orb. The barrier keeping you from the inner sanctum will only be breached for a short time. Unless everything is taken care of before mending the orb, you won't be able to save me. I see that all the art pieces you need. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I see that all the art pieces you need. I know I have.
The inspiration for this level came from the first Silent Hill game, when you run around in the town. I wanted to recreate the feeling of being lost, knowing that dangerous creatures lurked in the fog. I did not really like the map in the Silent Hill games though, as you always had to switch back and forth between it. So in all our games we tried to come up with other ways to help the player navigate. In this level it meant that you should follow the pipes. This was not really apparent to all people though, and that's why there's a little event at the start.
You have all the ore pieces you need. I know I have no.
staircase is inspired by The Haunting, the black and white version. I really love spiral staircases and I find there's something ominous about them. Also worth noting is that torture devices in the level are all real and that things similar to those depicted had happened in real life. even in present days. For example, strappado is still a common torture method. As discussed in another commentary spot, we try to take the subject seriously and stay away from just divulging in gore and stuff.
I see that all the orb pieces you need. I see that all the orb pieces you need. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But if you could find it in your heart to gather the ingredients for Vaya's tonic before attempting to mend the orb, there might still be a chance for you to save it.
Get her back! Quite frankly, I'm not sure what to do with you. I hold no grudge against you, Daniel. We are so very much the same, you and I. Did you really drink from the amnesia mixture? It does explain so much of your behavior. You never did finish what you set out to do. You talked about redemption, how you would face the orb's shadow and save our work, and me. I will grant you another chance to redeem yourself. You can wait here and stop the shadow. Thank you, friend.
Escaping the cell has several solutions. In the very first version, there was only one solution to everything. Then by mistake, we had forgotten to remove the hammer item, so obviously testers tried to use it to break down the wall, complaining loudly to us when it did not work. So we added that possibility, and when doing so, all of a sudden the option was there for the player to have a metal bar item as well. So we also added a second solution on how to obtain the key in the pipe. You can use the metal bar to push it out. The original solution is to get the bucket, fill it with water and pour the water down the pipe. There is also a third option for getting out of the cell. Do you know how to do it?
The player feedback from Penumbra Overture's chase scenes were that all who completed them on the first try liked them, and those who did not disliked them. So in order to make the upcoming chase scene engaging, the idea was to make it different every time you failed, instead of forcing the player to repeat the same thing over and over. So if you have failed it once, we do our best to make you believe that now is the time when the chase will begin. This is true for other parts of the game too, but I think it's most apparent in this section. This hopefully means that however you play the sequence, it ends up being thrilling and not annoying.
Crush his skull! He deserves it!
One of my favorite additions to the game was the loading screens, how they was able to mirror and foreshadow the action of the player. Of course, there might not be that many who actually pay attention to these little snippets of text, but there were some really good stuff in there. There is even one character's life you can influence through the game, which is only mentioned in the loading texts, which is Hazel, Daniel's sister, which will either live or have died when she was young, depending on what the player chooses to do in the game. The actions don't correlate, of course, but it is supposed to show that the way the player acts is a part of Daniel's real inescapable behavior. If the player plays Daniel in a caring way, he will have saved his sister from her death when they were younger, and if the player shows no will to help others, she will have died. One thing which worried me was that the player would feel trapped within the castle in an artificial way, that is, that they would perhaps realize that they are running around these boxed up levels. A good way to disarm this feeling is by adding exterior levels, so I asked Thomas could we show the outside somehow. He already had some ideas, but he figured they would have to be cut eventually because of the costs. So I was really happy to see this making it into the game. It just gives you that little reminder of that there is a world out there, which is not only made from references.
18th of August, 1839. Tonight, we will unlock the power of the orb and ultimately banish the shadow hunting me. I feel it closing in on me and I fear for my life more than ever. Just outside Altstadt lays a small settlement where Zimmerman, a dairy farmer, lives with his wife and 3 children. The coach went there. Our visit was unexpected, and Alexander was able to strike Zimmerman down without alerting the others. As he went to take care of the farmhands, I began to look for the children. We should have more than enough prisoners to finish the ritual now.
In the original design, the player had to make sure to have all of the ingredients for the Agrippa potion before getting captured earlier in the game, or else it would not be possible to complete the potion in the laboratory. After early testing sessions, it was clear that this was way too harsh, as the player can't really escape the capture scene when he has all the 6 orb pieces. Luckily, this level had areas that all suited to add variations to the puzzles from the original ingredient gathering. Depending on what ingredients the player has when coming here, there will be extra objects and areas to interact with to gather the missing ingredients, allowing you to complete the sawing off Agrippa's head puzzle.
thought I'd lost you. The castle trembled and I could hear the chancel collapse. The laboratory might be accessible now. Quickly, off with the head! And then, whatever happens, get me through that gate. Are left. They sometimes consume themselves, or break, then used by an uninitiated. I was lucky. So all I found spared my life and returned to where I found it. I know because Alexander took it and brought it to Brandenburg. Was a brave man, and dared to proceed that I did not. He unearthed a number of cavern temples, and gathered a whole collection. Me, powerful. Not so rare. I've done.
1939. I cannot believe what I have become. One of the girls escaped and I chased after her all the way upstairs. I hunted her down, and what is her life worth? How many lives can I take before I surrender my own? Sure, I would kill a murderer to save an innocent, but to kill an innocent to save myself? A cold-blooded murderer.
system was a pretty fun assignment to work at. After thinking a bit about it, I chose to make it in sections and put them together using the level editor and script, as creating a so big and complex particle system would have taken a lot of time to pull right. This way, I just made the start gathering part that happens right at the barrier passage, a midstream part that is repeated using areas and synchronized using timers in the script so it looks like a single stream, and the end part, when it gets to the orb. Then Thomas added some more details, and this what you can see here is the result of that. I must say I like how it ended up to be.
Sometimes you just can't get completely satisfied with your work. This level is one of those for me. I tested a lot of different versions for how the electric tunnel should sound and for how the orb should explode. In the end, I think it turned out okay, but it was definitely not how I imagined it to begin with. With the tunnel, I tried to have it a bit mechanical, but also with a wooden type of rotating sound, to connect the machinery to the center of the story. The same with the electric barrier. It is very easy to get into too much of a sci-fi mode with a modern electric humming type of noise. so I did my best to keep it like a simple electric malfunction sound. With the orb explosion at the end, or perhaps the implosion of the orb, it was important to have a sound that would work when standing next to it as well as being far away, because the orb can explode when you wreck the machine for the tunnel. With this in mind, it is a very powerful but very damp and dull sound when the orb breaks.